Welcome to another episode of the NEL Show. My name is Sage NEL in Emmanuel Marquis. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can click the description, links in the description below to find out more about me. You're watching the replay, learn more about me on www.sagenel.com. That is SAGENEL. I'm excited to bring you into today's conversation, where we are going to be discussing how we're going to be rebuilding the value system in government. It's going to be an interesting time, and it's going to be a lot more solution focused. 1001 times we are continually talking about the problems, and it's okay. We need to talk about the problems and know the problems to even be able to prefer any form of solution. But today, with the way that the conversation will be tilted, I would like us to discuss solutions, and we have three amazing guests that will be joining in. Our female guest, the only female guest, is here, and I'm happy. I will be adding her now, then followed by our other two guests that will be joining.
Thank you so much, Toyin, for choosing to do this.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good morning, Toyin. Good morning, Daniel.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Daniel. Meet Daniel meet Toyin. I don't know why Daniel is forming humble now, because Daniel is beyond how he's looking. He's just saying, good morning. Hey, if he starts to talk now, we're not going to leave here.
I'm his boy.
Thank you so much for joining in. So thank you. You are always looking like a fashion model that you are, but more importantly, yes, you are a role model beyond just fashion. And it's fantastic to have them both. So thank you for joining us. Emmanuel will be joining us shortly, but we are going to go through with the process, as I wouldn't want us to pass a particular timing of finishing this live. So let me go through to just read the profile. As I was showing his profile, Daniel's profile. Thank you so much to everybody joining in, just so that we can get to know a bit about our guests today, our panelists. Toyin Banjo is a catalyst for change who is resolved to outwitting our best and contributing beyond herself to any humanitarian cause that impacts and transforms the lives of others. As an enterprising speaker, exceptional, innovative, and resourceful individual with collaborative, excellent communication skills, and over 12 years of working experience in the corporate communications, brand management, strategic planning, project management, volunteer management, quality management, research and development, finance and investment in the insurance and development sector. Also possessing a broad knowledge of consulting, high-level commitment to quality, problem-solving, and analytical abilities, strong project management skills. She is the project director, Ideation Hub, a social profit accelerator and public policy firm, providing early-stage social entrepreneurs and non-profit professionals with experiential education, enterprise incubation, growth advisory, and collaborative platforms to start, scale, and sustain their big ideas for changing Africa. In 2020, she was conferred with an award by the Royal African Young Leadership Forum by His Imperial Majesty, the Oni of Ife, for leadership excellence, stunning work ethic, unwavering allegiance, and commitment to youth transformation and nation building. And this is just to mention a few about Toyin. Thank you so much for joining in. Let me add Emmanuel. Once I add Emmanuel, I'll go straight to reading Daniel's profile, then we also read Emmanuel's profile, and then we get started. I'm just receiving Emmanuel's request now, so I just want to be sure. Okay, I am sure it will join in. Okay, it's good. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for joining us. I think your camera is turned. Okay, yes, you've turned it the right way now. All right, let me go straight to Daniel's profile. I'm sure Emmanuel will join in. Okay.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Emmanuel.
My apologies, it's very, very rainy here in Abuja. I hope that I would have got office by now, but it's showering hippos and elephants over here. But it's my pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Meet Daniel, meet Toyin, and Toyin, Daniel, meet Emmanuel. Thank you for joining in.
Good morning, Toyin. Good morning, Daniel. A pleasure to virtually meet you.
Same here.
Okay, so I'll go on. I'm reading profiles. It's an important part for our show. So I'm on Daniel's profile now, then I'll come to Emmanuel's profile, and then we'll start off. Daniel Adaaja is an on-air personality with Yes FM 101.7 FM Ibadan, and is the creative director for SOBO Power Touch Innovation, the Intellect TV show. Daniel is also a voice-over artist, content creator, MC, red carpet host, YouTuber, podcaster, and an amazing hype man. Popularly known as Power Touch, he graduated from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, in 2018. Power Touch started his radio journey in 2013. Whilst in school, he served as a volunteer with FUNAB Radio. Also was a freelancer with Ogun State Broadcasting Corporation in 2016 to 2018 in the ancient city of Abeokuta. He moved back in Lagos in July of 2018 and joined Women Radio in August 2018 and was the host of the Full Breakfast every week. He is also the host of the Friday television show on Silverbird, the Intellect TV, the Athenian. He joined Yes FM Ibadan in February 2022. Parker tells us that he's currently working on his top project, and he also has been involved in his little way to train those who are interested in being in the media world. He is a radio personality with a focus on building a connection with his listeners and also creating a safe space for himself and the listeners to share ideas, be vulnerable while exchanging ideas and enlightening each other. His philosophy for life is be intentional about what you do, about what you say, and be deliberate about what you do. Thank you again, Daniel, for being here. Marquis E. Okoroa, that is Emmanuel, is a brand strategist and social reform and inclusion advocate. Emmanuel has, for the past 8 years, worked as a brand catalyst for numerous startups, corporate organizations, political actors, and non-profit groups. He's a strategy consultant at a slew of civil society organizations, including Reorientation Advocacy Foundation of Nigeria, Flag Foundation of Nigeria, and the Deaf Resource Center, to name a few. He's the founder of GAG SDG, Get Ahead Group, a think tank of innovative youth who are using their abilities to flatten the curve and address sustainability issues in the new and emerging creative subsector. GAG SDG is affiliated with OSSAP SDG, Office of the Senior Special Advisor to the President on Sustainable Development Goals. He is the founder and CEO of Tyrant, the Young Republican. Thank you for being here. So let's get right into the first question, which is, what makes up government in Nigeria? I would like you to, it's a very basic question, but it's a very important question. Many times people who are talking on air, I make these jokes sometimes, that there are some people, their work is to move from radio to radio. 8 a.m. they are on one radio, 10, the next radio, 11, 12. They are there on radio complaining all day long. Sometimes they know the facts, sometimes it's what they are feeling, and it's fair enough. And some other times they have no clue what they are talking about and how they can be involved. So I'd like you to share. I'd like to start with Emmanuel. Please share with us what makes up the government. What is the government? When people say the government, what is the government? What makes up the government? Who is the government? What are we even talking about when we're talking about the government? Because it seems as though some people are talking about some invisible group of people when they say, oh, it's the government's fault. Let's start with that.
Okay, thank you very much, Nkechi. And once again, thank you for having me here to this conversation with chief enlightened individuals. So I find that question very, very pertinent and profound in the light of the reality that we are faced with today. And just like you rightly said, you have a situation where a lot of people are very quick to label government on just about everything that is wrong or malfunctioning within our society. And it appears to me that that is a revelation of a certain level of ignorance on their part, because when you say the government, you're actually talking to the people. It is a collection of all of us, the leaders and the led. So when anybody says the government and they're heaping blames and heaping criticism and all that, I think it's just a revelation of a deep level of ignorance, and an attempt to absolve ourselves from the responsibility of the problems that we have faced with as a nation. And I say this without any kind of apology, because you see, when you say the government is a setup or a representation of the people's collective will and aspiration, it doesn't start on the day of voting and then end the day and the moment that that political candidate is announced, whether at the top house of representative, the president, the governor, or any other elected position for that matter. It is an entire life cycle of everything that any single administration at any level of government is doing, will do, has done, or intends to do. So it is a collection. It is a collection of everybody, not just a section of people who have been elected.
Okay. Thank you so much. What are your thoughts on that, Toyin? The same question. When we hear people talk about the governments, what do you think about that?
Emmanuel has rightly put it, the government is the collective responsibility of everybody. I'm speaking about the government now in the context of a system. And he has spoken about the government in the context of the people, where it involves every single person, every individual within the polity. Now, when you talk about the system, it's also the collective responsibility of everyone. One way or the other, what we don't realize is that our inputs, whether as an individual or as an organization, as an institution, across any strata, has a direct impact, on the overall output or things that we are seeing currently happening within the polity. So when we say, oh, the government is corrupt, it all starts with what is going on within smaller organizations. This level of corruption that you're complaining about is also happening across different stratas of influences, whether as individuals, if someone is looking for a job, you have to bribe your way through, you have to do all of that. It still starts with the people. And it's also speaks to the systems that is run within different organizations. Do you get it? So it's the collective responsibility. Nobody can absorb themselves of this responsibility. So just again, corroborating what Emmanuel has said, it is the collective responsibility of everyone. You can't just paint the government as a separate entity from every institution and every individual. It is a representation of individuals, that make the government, and this representation of individuals comes from within the country, comes from everybody. It involves everybody. So the system itself, the government as a system is run by people. Do you understand? These people have influences across other strata. They are also being influenced directly or indirectly by people. Do you get it? So it's our collective responsibility. You can't absolve yourself of that responsibility. So I'm just corroborating the same point that Emmanuel has established.
Thank you so much, Toyin. I've got the next question for Daniel, but I think he's having network challenges. So I want to come to Toyin, although I've organized my question in such a way. Let's see. Let me come to Emmanuel again, then I'll come back to Toyin with this specific question on policy. Emmanuel, the concept of democracy, do you think we understand it in this country? And do you think that it is something that is working for us? Many times when we bring out all these issues I chose not to bring today because we speak about it all day long, I want it to be some sort of solution conversation. People start saying restructuring, that's the next thing they do, and maybe they're right. But what angle do we need to restructure from? Do you think we understand democracy? Is democracy right for us? Are we practicing democracy? Is it even working for us? Are we getting it wrong? Are we getting it right? I would like you to please speak on the concept of democracy, starting from what you even think it is, or from defining it for us, for anybody that will be watching this.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a jumbo-sized question that you asked. You basically have come. So I'll try to unpack your questions one bit at a time here. That you asked, do we really understand what democracy is in the first instance, and then is it working for us? The reality is, and I believe that even in the Western world, not very many of them understand the fundamentals of democracy as it first existed, during the Greek civilization, which is essentially where it began from. So, to be fair to Nigeria or under any given African context, we do not have a democracy in the truest sense of the word, because it is supposed to be a representation of the people, for the people, and by the people. You see, one of the things I have come to realize is that when you have conversations about how government is built and structured and how the systems work, one of the things that we're very quick to ignore or deny is the reality that our government is only but outlandish reflection of who we are as a people. That tendency to remove ourselves and isolate ourselves from the responsibility, that tendency to, deteriorate systems and cry as though we were to be victims and perpetrators in one fold. Okay, so to that extent, I believe that we do not understand what a democracy is. And if I have to also be very honest, I'd say that given the heterogeneity of the Nigerian space, the complex nature of how our ethnicity is woven, it's almost impossible to imagine that a democracy can really work for us. And I'm talking about pure democracy in the true sense of the word as it should exist. Is it really era? Now, having said that, the question will now be, so we don't understand what democracy is. Can we try to understand it and see if it will work for us? To my mind, I believe that when we take our time to study the constructs of what makes a particular system of government democratic in nature, in principle and in practice, not just you're not a democracy just because you call yourself a democratic republic. You're not a democracy because you have elections. You're not a democracy because you have representation. You're a democracy because you are an aspect reflective of everything that a people, regardless of their tribes, regardless of their socio-political persuasion, their religious affiliation, their cultural backgrounds, their ethnic profile, all of those things. You are a reflection of all they have, are, and want. So if you do not have that, that cannot be said to be democracy. So to answer your second question of are we practicing democracy? No, we are not. Can democracy really work for us in this country? No, it can't. And the reason it can't work in the first instance is that we are a people who are by ourselves very complicated to deal with. The sort of peculiarities that defines how we are made, the configuration of the Nigerian system, the Nigerian state, is in itself a behemoth that simply having an elective principle in place as a measure or a way for appointing leadership and actualizing, a nation vision or a national vision is not enough. Is it a tyranny that works for us? Is it an autocracy that works? I don't know. It's a conversation that we're going to have when we are ready and sincere about it. It's a conversation that we will have when we are ready to set aside all of this politics, all of these pandemic influences to the left, to the right, to the conservativity, or to the progressivism. When we are done with all of those hogwash, all of those just politicizing issues, I think we'll be able to answer that honestly, but that might take a long time. So for the time being, given the realities that has pervaded what it is to be in and live in Nigeria, I believe that a democracy isn't working, isn't practicable, and simply cannot be sustained. That's the second thing. The third phase, you mentioned the issue about restructurability. We are very consumed with a tendency. We love this idea to just throw words around. We have a lack for clarity. Restructuring, but we don't really understand what that takes, what that requires. We don't understand that would demand what. Because when you say restructuring, I just feel like it's another politician's way. It's another politician's way to, colorfully present an agenda that is selfish and self-centered in every way. I believe it's an agenda, a strategic attempt to manipulate sentiments, take on the people's pain points and then amplify them to an extent and a degree that is ridiculous and at the same time incredibly difficult to manage, sustain, and control, and ponder it all over our faces. And it will work because, in the first instance, like I already mentioned, we're a very completely open people from multiple ethnicities, and so our configuration already bodes a lot of challenges when it comes to managing people's peculiar interests.
Okay, I think Emmanuel must have frozen. Can you hear me, Emmanuel? I think we can hear you, but not seeing you. Okay, we're good now. Yes, you can go on.
We have to ask ourselves, what does Nigeria really need right now? What system of government really works for us in the light of everything that we are? Because every time they say, is either we restructure or we scatter or we rebuild or we go our separate ways. I am one very difficult to say that. Even if we split along your lines and you have the Oduduwa Republic and you have the Biafra Republic and all that, what you could have ordinarily done is that you will be really getting to a smaller space and a region, what is already a national flaming issue and it's not likely to change anytime soon. So, summary one, we don't understand what the democracy is, just like we do not understand what government is, because there's a sense of self-government. Two, we are not practicing. If you don't understand anything, then you can't be doing it. You're not practicing it.
Yes.
And so it's not working for us. And thirdly, we need to really get over this silly tendency to be bowled over and told to certain narratives that we just pick from a different climate, say, restructuring or referendum. It's just emotional masturbation as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's what.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts as detailed as possible. Toyin, what are your thoughts on, Emmanuel has said a lot, but I would like you to come from the angle of this whole restructuring thing. What do you think the people mean when they talk about restructuring? And what do you envision that it may look like if that even ever happens? Based on the work that you do and the involvement that your organization is in providing policies and all that. What's the practicality of that if we want to go there?
All right, thank you very much, Ignichi, for that question. So, of course, I will not be tackling it from the angle that people perceive restructuring as. When people think about restructuring, when they say restructuring, it's let's just start afresh. Let's break everything apart, then rebuild it. And that doesn't look like a reality, that can happen. Because what people don't realize is that in breaking something apart and rebuilding takes more efforts. It requires more efforts, not just efforts from the point of view of just the government. It is a collective effort of everyone. And currently, you don't think about it. Where we are currently, also where we are as a nation, where we are currently as a nation, is also somewhat tied to how we all are currently oriented as a people. So in terms of our values orientation, it is really depreciated. So when you understand that there is a depreciation of values, of the right values, of the values within the polity, then the greater work has to start from there, just before you can start talking about restructuring. Because if you restructure a thing and you still have the same collective with the same mindset, you understand? You will still be stuck in the same place, building the same thing. So that's why I say, when we are talking about...
Sorry, hold on. Emmanuel, please, could you mute your mic? I think there is an interruption from your side. If you could just mute yourself when you are not speaking. Yes, thank you. Okay, you can go ahead, Toyin, as you were saying.
Okay. So, when we understand that in ensuring this values reorientation and all of that, it involves everyone. And that's why one thing we advocate for within our work at the Nation of Africa is to say that we should be part of the policy making and implementation process. Of course, we know to a large extent that implementation is not within our control. And that's why we say we also have to somewhat work with government. But you know, that's another story for another day. Because when you start saying, okay, it's not like people don't want to partner with government, but we know, okay, also there is some sort of interest, this and that, so it's a story for another day. So for me, nonetheless, I will still preach and say, we can't give up. One thing we must understand is that we must keep at it. We must keep getting into those think tanks, getting into those communities and groups, think tanks, we still prefer solutions through policies, formulation of policies, and still see how we can push for the implementation of these policies. Now, am I saying this has not been done in the past? No. But what I'm saying here is we have to continue to remain resilient. We cannot afford to give up. Do you get it? So in this whole issue of restructuring, as I said, the first point I made, it all starts from the point of values reorientation. Because even if we break apart and you rebuild a thing with the same old thinking, backward mindset, we would still be stuck in the place we came from. Do you understand? And the next point is we can't afford to give up. Of course, all the options presented before us is like, it almost looks like it's impossible. But if we go with the belief that it's impossible, we will remain stuck. We won't be able to go forward with even pushing for the making of these policies, formulation of these policies, and its implementation. So my point here is we just have to keep at it. We just have to still get into these think tanks and keep re-evaluating what already exists as policies, what is missing within these policies, review what already exists, see how we can fuse in the cultural realities, religious realities, and make these things practicable. Then drive for implementation from the place of the grassroots, just starting from where you are and taking it a step at a time. Most times we just want to go at the, just go for the jugular, go for the main thing, and we begin to think very, expansively. And I'm not saying that is wrong, but most times it doesn't mean at the foundational phase we can start to do something. We can start to do something, and if we all can put our hands on on deck, we can put our hands together, and as a collective push for this, we would achieve greater results.
Thank you so much, Toyin, for your perspective. All right, Daniel, are you there? Daniel, please, want to see your face, though. It's only your mic that you may need to mute when you're not speaking. Just your mic. But yeah, we'd like to see your face. Okay, oh, I can't hear you. I think you're still muted. No, you're still muted.
We can't hear you, Daniel.
Yes, we can't hear you. You are still, I think because of the muting, it's still muted. You need to unmute your mic.
Okay, we can hear you now.
But the network has been...
No, at all, because it's the whole network drama. So let me get right.
I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes,
yes, I hear you. I hear you. All right. So let's go to your question, Daniel. We've got into a place where corruption is the order of the day, or basically is the order of the day. Okay. Emmanuel, please, can you mute yourself? I'm having interruptions from Emmanuel. No, you don't need to switch off your video, just your mute, just your mic. If you can mute yourself, please. Yeah, that's Emmanuel. Thank you. Yeah, but you can leave your video on. It's just the muting. I think sometimes when 4 people are on, there's just a lot of network interruption. Okay, so Daniel, are you still there, Daniel? Okay, good. All right, you're there. So I want to ask, we found out. Oh, I'm not sure if you can hear me because this stuff is buffering. Oh, Daniel, can you hear me? I can imagine, this network thing.
He seems to have a poor network connection.
Yes, and he hasn't even been able to speak since. That is why I really want him to try to contribute. Yeah. Can you hear me, Daniel? If not, we may have to still continue.
The network is really messed up.
Okay, yes, I can hear you now. All right, let me go on with the question for you. Oh, we have to go. Anyways, let me keep that question so that when it comes back, he can speak to that. So let me talk to you now, Toyin, then I'll come back to Emmanuel, or Toyin, if Daniel joins us again, and then Emmanuel. Policies have been said to be a great determinant in the possible direction of a nation and where it could go. Of course, just like you shared with us in the last point you just made, if these policies are implemented, how are policies formed and what are their importance? If you could take us through the journey of and I'm also trying to use this conversation and interview as some sort of mini government class, because I think that if people do not even know what they're talking about, they cannot really make any visible change. They will continue to be the ones shouting, and they will continue to be used. And after the noise, they will just go back to the status quo, and those who know what it is they're talking about will keep on moving. So if you could share with us how policies are formed, the importance of policies, and how it can make a nation move in the right direction.
Thank you, Kechi, for that question. So I just love the angle that this question is framed from. So policies, every day, people don't understand that every day we are forming policies. Just like now we are engaged in conversation about a topical issue within the polity. Every day, people share thoughts. People are analyzing, dissecting the problem, and also from time to time preferring sometimes practicable solutions. Now, the only difference here is that in those times when these things are happening, those thoughts, those points, valuable solutions that have been made are not documented. So when you're making a policy, it's a situation where a group of persons come together, whether via a think to review, evaluate topical issues, taking a particular topical issue and preferring real-time practicable solutions regarding those issues. Then documenting those issues in actionable forms. Then presenting it to either a system of government, whether at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level, you know, for implementation. So that is how policies are done. And even when we look at, when we look at organizations, every organization runs with a policy. Do you understand? Everyone who runs an organization, you know, runs with a policy. You have your human resource. There's a human resource policy existing within that organization. You have the company as a whole. There's a company policy. You understand? Existing. And as I said, it's just sitting together and saying, coming up with solutions and actionable solutions that can move forward, solve a problem, move that organization forward, move that nation forward, or solve a pressing problem at that material time. Now, you spoke about one of the importance. So I've spoken about, I'm just trying to simplify. That's why the way I'm defining it, I'm defining it in a simple form so it's easy for anyone to grasp. Exactly. Now, thinking about the importance of policies, they can never, you can never overemphasize the importance of policies. Remember from my last point, people will say, would you say policies don't exist within Nigeria? Policies exist. You understand? If you go to the office of maybe vice president, there are stock of policy documents. Even the National Assembly documents that have been presented, none are seen the light of the day. But nonetheless, as I said, we must just keep at it. I know I made a very valid point where we must understand that as we make policies, we're able, one, to reevaluate what already exists from the standpoint of what is possible. So we may have developed a policy on a particular issue, maybe on gender advocacy, for instance, in the last few years. And we may say in the last maybe 10 years, when that policy was developed, it has not been implemented to the degree of the development that has been made. And that's why when policies are developed, there is also the room of systemic measurement. What has been done thus far? Where are we currently? Are we still where we are in terms of the implementation? If we're not where we are, okay, what have we done and what could we do better? So policies are usually like, policies, secondly, are roadmaps. They are roadmaps to the future of what is possible. And that's why you can never get tired of developing policies. Because just as the word roadmap, it is giving a direction to where we want to go to, where we are aiming for, and what is next. So that's why they are important. Do you understand? The third point there also is that policies exist for, as I said, policies exist to capture solutions in record form. So when those policies are in record form, right? There are policies that have been developed in the last 20 years that you can go back to, dust them up and say, okay, what has been done, reevaluate, and we move forward. So it exists in record form, so that when the maybe right set of people with the right mindset and right values get into an opportunity to implement these policies, they can run with them. They exist in record form, so that anyone who picks up those policies can go ahead to run with them and see them to fruition. So that is why they exist. And that's why we can never get tired of developing policies. Also, it also provides an avenue for like minds, change makers, forward-thinking individuals to come together to continuously provide practical solutions we can never stop preferring solutions. In as much as we say, oh, they have not been implemented, we can never stop preferring solutions. Yesterday's solution. You want to say something, Nkechi? Okay.
No, I'm saying okay. I'm following.
Okay.
Yes.
Yesterday's solution sometimes may not be practicable in today's climate. And that's why when policies are developed, there is the room for continuous review and reevaluation. So those are my points.
Very profound points, Toyin. Thank you so much for how you articulated it, broke it down, and like explained to anybody. And I like the simplicity because our conversations and interview, we like it to be open to anybody in simple languages that they can understand. Thank you so much for that. Daniel, are you here with us? Perhaps
I'm here.
putting on your
keeping my video off is going to help me be stay on this because I think the video on is not allowing the network signal to stay longer.
Yes. Okay, so we'll go on with
that. But you
that.
can hear me clearly. So that's important, yeah?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. So the question for you is, you've gotten to a place where it seems like corruption is the order of the day, at least from visible proof of what people are going through in their lives. And we keep talking about corruption. You've been into political talks for years now on radio. It seems as if it's the same conversation in different formats. For instance, it can be the same conversation, but today it's color red, tomorrow it's color blue, tomorrow it's color green. But it looks as if we're talking about the same thing all the time. From your perspective, could you tell us how we got here to this level of corruption? So much so that it's a lot of drama the other day, or was it not just this week, bread sellers or people who produce the flour, whether cake or bread, they went on strike. All of these things have been attributed to corruption. Well, you have the opportunity and right to say it's not true if you think it's not. So is that true? How did we get here, and how can we move out of here?
I think one of the first things, I was having a conversation with some people last week, and it dawned on me that we are all failing to understand that Nigeria itself was a transaction, which is where we need to start the conversation from about corruption. The history of our country started as an exchange or as a business transaction, which is what we must come to terms with. The formation of the 1914 amalgamation now. Before that time, started off the place of us making a transaction to where Nigeria is. We are not talking about the fact that there is a part of our history that says that Nigeria came off a transaction with the now Unilever brothers, which we are not talking about. So it's obvious that there's a lot behind the scene that is not being told to the public. The corruption that has formed our country, even to the devaluation of our naira. Nobody's talking about the fact that we had to devalue our naira so that we can get loans from the United States and we can get loans from other countries in the times of Babangida and co. There was a devaluation of our naira that led to us accessing certain loans. We are not talking about the fact that there is a conscious movement to not allow Africa be on top of the world. What we have in Africa is enough to make Africa lead the world. Nobody's talking about the fact that, we're not addressing some of these colonial issues that are still affecting our democracy of today. Democracy was handed over to us. And when somebody hands something over to you, it means that there's a certain level of what's the word now? Control they have over you for them to say, okay, now you are free to go. When somebody has been a slave for a long time and then their master lets them go, it means that they have served a certain time or they have paid certain dues or there are certain agreements that have been made over time for them to find themselves in a place called freedom. So in a bit of fighting for our freedom as a country or as a continent or as a country specifically, we must not overlook the fact that there is a level of control that is still not within the powers of the people we call our government of today.
Wow. This is a lot that you are...
No, go ahead. We must look at it from that angle. We're still taking decisions within Nigeria, and we're still having certain level of control. The government of the day still has to report to a higher authority beyond itself.
Okay.
So these
So
conversations are built up to where we are today. Look at NNPC went private, public just a few days ago. And a lot of people are questioning the fact is, why didn't it go public for the general, for every Nigerian to be part of it? Why is it that specific private organizations are the ones to now take over NNPC? Why not every Nigerian have a certain level of investment in NNPC? But guess what? Dangote is going to open his refinery tomorrow, and he's going to control the price of crude oil in Nigeria when Dangote refinery is up. So corruption is not just as black and white transactions. Some of it still has to do with a certain level of control, the willpower. We have to tackle this corruption from the authority. We need to go back to our history. One of the biggest mistakes we made was when Buhari came into power and he said no more history in our academic system. For over 10 years, they were not teaching history in schools. So a lot of us don't even have an idea of where we are coming from, not to now talk of how do we deal with today's issue.
Okay, so from what you've shared now, it has a lot to do with where we are coming from.
Yes.
What would you say is the solution? Would you say it's now going to that we first of all need to leave all this restructuring talk, and you can share on what you think about restructuring as well, and go back to education, to history education? Is that what you are saying is the first solution to this corruption problem?
I think the solution to our corruption problem, which a lot of people might not agree to, is we need to understand the fact that the current constitution that we are using cannot take us to where we want to be. Okay. The 1999 constitution as amended cannot take us out of corruption. It will consistently keep us within the purviews of corruption. We will continue to be a corrupt nation as long as we continue to make use of the 1999 constitution as amended. We definitely need a new total constitution, which I do not think that the current crop of individuals in the seat of power have the willpower to do so.
Okay.
Because
what is the problem? Go ahead, please.
There are so many things that are wrong with the 1999 constitution that if we do not abolish the 1999 constitution, we might not necessarily be able to come out of corruption. How we run certain issues in our government. People have actually said we might need to go back to the parliamentary system of government so that everybody can have a pocket of control. Everybody understand exactly what is going on. But I also think that we need the right crop of politicians in position of authority, because right now we've been recycling the same number of politicians for decades. President Muhammadu Buhari started NNPC 44 years ago. 44 years later, he's still in power, and he's the one now pioneering the privatization of of the NNPC. So it takes your mind off the fact when you talk about leaders of tomorrow. If the same person who was one of the first people that started off NNPC is still there today and still in the control of power, so you see that there is a deliberate move to keep the same set of people in the position of authority for as long as they can be there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Daniel. I think the next question, and I would like to come to Emmanuel, but I want to get your thoughts on it, Daniel, before I go to Emmanuel, is what is the practical way? How can the constitution review begin? What process is it going to look? What's it going to look like if we need to rewrite or rework our constitution?
Well, I think it starts with the willpower. It starts with the willpower from those in the position of authority. They must think outside of themselves. We have a constitution and we have a government that serves the government, not the people. Somebody was talking about the police. The police structure was the initial reasons for bringing in security into Nigeria was not to protect the people, but to protect colonial masters. So when that the police does not have a relationship with the people, the police does not have a relationship with the people because they were not designed to protect the people. They were designed to protect their masters. which is the government of the day. That's why you see that government can always use security agencies against the people, like what we saw during the NSAS protest. It was in line with what these security agencies have been designed for from the very beginning. This, which is what we need to correct. Police do not show up in your area unless there is a crime. You might never see a police officer in your area unless there is a reported case of crime or somebody is robbed or something. That's when you see police. So police is actually not your friend because they're not designed in that way. So if we want to actually review the Constitution, we need people who must see the need to put the people first before themselves. The Constitution is not meant to protect politicians. It is meant to protect the citizen. Look at what's happening in the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister had to resign because of pressure from the people and people at the Parliament. What is obtainable in our country? The President, the governors are immune to be investigated of any corruption cases while they are in power. You cannot investigate the governor of the state. The governor of the state cannot be investigated for any corruption cases, for any corruption case while in power, right? And that is not supposed to be. So the constitution we currently practice protects the people in government. And we need a constitution that would first protect the people before the people in government. That is where I think we need to start. There's a confab report which Jonathan did before he left office in 2015. What is being done with that confab report? That confab report was heavy money was invested into that confab report to look at how we can revisit and review the Constitution of Nigeria and look at how the Constitution would serve the people first. We have mineral resources in the country, still centrally controlled by the government. Go to the United States today. Most of the states in the United States have a certain percentage of control of their own resources, so their people can hold the state government accountable. When Wike started the fight of the Governor Wike of Rivers, they started the fight that value-added tax should be collected by the state government, not federal government. If these people are working in my state, why am I not the one collecting the taxes? Why is the federal government collecting this tax and giving me a particular percentage, right? And there's the conversation of you make 100,000 naira from my state, and then at the end of the day, you're sending me 30,000 naira. What are you doing with the rest of the 70,000 naira? Why can't I be the one to take major decisions with regards to infrastructural development in my state? But you go to the same north, they make 30,000 naira. The government returns the 30,000 naira back to them.
Okay.
So
are you done, Daniel?
For us
okay, please go on.
Our constitution in such a way that it is focused on people than the people in government.
Okay. Thank you so much. Daniel has made a lot of points, and yes, to this method you found around your network, it is totally working. The most important thing is that we can hear you. Thank you so much. Emmanuel, we've got a lot of... did you say something, Daniel? Okay, I'm not sure. So I'll just move on to Emmanuel. Okay, you're done. Okay, all right. So, Emmanuel, we've got a lot of situation, and just it's kind of like an offshoot from this question I asked Daniel, but a different one. But we're talking about healthcare, the oil, the economy, the education. There's just one part of the economy that we're continually talking about every day that is not working. Electricity, you can go on and on and on. Emmanuel, is solving these problems, is it that difficult? Please take us through, because you are passionate about this. So surely you would have thought of some solutions that may refer to some of these things, or even some problems that we may be having in solving some of these issues, whether it's the oil, refinery, power, electricity, and so on and so forth. So is it so difficult? And why does it look like we're stagnant? Why does it look like we are not moving forward, at least visibly, with some of the solutions of these problems?
Okay, that's quite a difficult, complicated question to answer. But I try to, as simplistic as it. How can't we solve the problem? So the first question is, what are we motivated by? If you make a decision, for instance, to get up from bed every morning take your bath, brush your teeth, and head out to office or wherever. What motivates you? What's your interest? What drives you? So it is what drives you that will definitely influence how you behave and the actions you take, the decisions you make. So the question we have to ask is that the people in whose hands we have repositioned the power and the authority, the people we have given the privilege to lead and direct and govern us, what motivates them? Because you can only be a part of the solution you believe exists, you are affected by, and are determined to adapt. And I'm trying to just be very, I'm taking it one step at a time. We have a set of leaders who are motivated by lustfulness, by sensuousness, by greed and selfishness. We have a set of leaders who have next to nothing when it comes to empathy, when it comes to the sensitivity to the plights and the sufferings of the generality of Nigerians. We have a set of leaders who are stuck on themselves and at best their families and their cronies and those within their category or their class. And so when it comes to solving the problems or even having the motivation to solve the problem, you will find that more often than not, personal interests will always overwhelm and undermine the collective good. And that is why nearly 23 years after the first independent power project was, initiated by the Olusegun Obasanjo era, up until now, well over $25 billion has been sunk into the electricity sector. There is no visible change. In this month alone, or rather in this year alone, the national grid has collapsed 7 times. 7 times. Let me put perspective to that so that we understand how terrible that is. That is akin to saying that we have literally lost no less than arguably $23 million on an average daily basis when you consider how people have had to resort to alternative power and energy just to keep the economy afloat. So what you have is a situation where they thought, maybe when they sat on the sidelines, because I was watching the video of the Muhammadu Buhari campaign and how they were so ferocious and fierce about, this travesty will not stand, the fuel subsidy issue for it to be resolved, electricity is a mess, they've done it for more than 60 years, Obasanjo spent this money and that money. So I feel like sometimes they come with, we get carried away by flowery words and, very relevant promises, and agendas that look very well designed, craftily put together, articulated in very colorful papers with nice pictures of a smiling, benevolent-looking leader, and we forget that in reality, you have to question the values that lie at the surface of this vision that these people lay forward for us. What are the things that they value? What are the things that they're inspired by? What they're motivated by? So we have the problem. And I think it's not exclusive to the power sector. It's across board. It's the corruption, the perversion of due process, the perversion of what should be equitable justice and implementation of the ideas and policies and programs of government that should make life easier for people. It's a cross-cutting feature across all sectors of government. You have an endemic system of greed. You have an endemic system of insensitivity, of ineptitude, and they seem to be very bold about it because it's one thing to understand and identify the things that we have to do. It's another thing to be blinded to the reality of life when it comes to developing practical solutions to these challenges. And so I think we have a problem of electing the worst of us to put vestige to the ideas and desires of the best of us. People who we simply can't question their morality, people we can't question their value, people who we don't even know what they believe in. We just believe they say they believe in is what we believe in. So there's this head mentality. We have a head mentality to run with the general narrative. And I'm sorry to digress a little. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm a little very reluctant about the obedience movement, for instance. Because you see, I see the obedience movement, something that is very reflective of what is going on with the Buhari, or what went on with the Buhari regime, where people get carried away and they, because a person comes forward and is speaking the narrative and the things that assuages our pains and our problems and our frustration, that person is in his hand. But we don't question them, because visions will come and go. But values is what will keep us standing, it's what will keep us going. We may have a vision today to fix the electricity problem. Tomorrow it can be to automate the way that our technology space works. The next thing might be improve the quality of education available to the children. The next thing might be cutting down on the amount of money that is involved in running government. You know, so those visions will come, but what is the value? If the value, for instance, is the value for the common good of the people, as against the need to aggrandize to yourself and transcend from buying bulletproof jets worth hundreds of millions to buying mansions and villas in Dubai and the Maldives, and then it goes on to owning a spaceship, you know, because it never ends, you know, it never ends. So at what point do you plug in discipline, prudence? At what point do you plug in, you know, empathy into what you do? So we have leaders who don't have empathy. We have leaders who don't have the kind of values that is resonant, or a leader who cares about the people, who are purpose-led, who are value-driven. We don't have those people in power. And that's why you would always have a situation where year after year after year after year after year, the people will just be revisiting and revising agendas that the other people have. Today is a 7-point agenda, tomorrow it is a 5-point agenda, and the day after is a 3-point agenda. It will never change, because our value system is broken. And if I must make bold to say this, I will say that the problem doesn't necessarily inherit from being in leadership. I listened carefully to what Daniel was saying, and he mentioned that we had a system where, you know, we just inherited a colonial system of government, and rather than repudiate, than break down, we simply consolidated on what was a transactional agreement in the first instance. And I kind of agree with him. But I think that the problem actually inherits directly from the sort of value system that we impute and we imbibe at the family level, because the family is at the subset of everything that makes us who we are today. So you have families that have failed to inspire confidence and inspire confidence, rather than, you know, build a certain level of consciousness and compassion for other people's plight. So families are basically pandering kind of narrative and value system onto young people. And what they are now doing is not creating a situation where they carry all of those inadequacies from the family level onto the school or educational level. And then, rather than build character and focus on building competence, we're busy building the capacity for competitiveness. Who came first, who came second? We move with that, and then we have peer groups who, rather than have compassion for each other, are busy to outwit, outspend, outdress, outtalk, outstay each other. You carry all of those inadequacies and put them into the societal level. There's no cohesion. Somebody asks you, where do you come from? You tell the person you're from Delta State. You say, where is Delta? Delta North. Where is Delta North? And you and they want to drill down. If your father met your mother, and how did you get perfect? And then you see you have a situation where there is no confidence at the family level. Parents don't inspire confidence. Parental responsibility has now become parental investment, because they will send their children to school so that when they are old age, the children can come back ahead and take care of them and take care of the responsibilities. And who beside you, if you're the first son, first male-born child of an African family, you probably wouldn't marry until you're school. You have all of those inadequacies, you move it on to the school level. I mean, a big import of problems, educational dysfunction, unqualified, untrained teachers, stereotype curricula, just like the policies, like my sister Toyin was mentioning, policies that are stacked high. And every other time at the National Assembly, you don't want to know the amount of documents that are stuck. Well, tertiary institutions, the same thing replicated itself, because the same project work you submitted 5, 7, 10 years ago, nobody has need for it. They pack it up and then they burn it. Move with all of those issues, and say what you have done is by refusing to build confidence at the family level, refusing to build competence at the educational level, inspire compassion at the peer group level, inspire cohesion at the societal level. You have individuals who are malcontent, they will never feel they are enough. They manage to grow 10 million naira mark and can afford to buy a car worth 50 million. They will look to their left and find a neighbor who just bought a brand new SUV worth 50 million. And then they create space. And then when they get that, no sooner are they done, they realize that somebody was able to buy a private jet worth $100 million, and then they keep going and then they keep going. It never heads. So when you have those kind of people who are risen through the ranks, now somehow surreptitiously or ostentatiously push themselves into positions of power and authority within the political corridor, you have consent in place of government. So why do you think they would care whether you have rights in your house or can afford to eat street weapons when they can obviously buy that for themselves and for their family? So they're the best of mothers, so they are the children, and the best of mothers, and the best of aunts and uncles in their family. But they're the worst of leaders, the worst of ministers, the worst of governors, the worst of commissioners. You know why? Because in their mind and heart, as long as they can satisfy their family, that's my own instinct. That I call it the waiting syndrome. As long as their family is fine and sorted out, then the rest of the world can go to the books. They don't care. So that is the very foundation on which the problem that we are faced with at the governmental level begins to manifest itself, and in very violent forms. So when you have this kind of individual as powers of position of power authority, you're not going to have people who are driven by values or are motivated by the value of what the communality of the community. They are driven by values that are self-centered. And let's face it, the majority of Nigerians who are also crying and complaining, if they're given the chance with the same value system, they will essentially replicate the same thing in more horrendous forms when they get into power. So it's so that think that when we begin to address these issues around how we solve the trans problem, we need to go back and fix the value system. And if fix the value system, we need to begin to question all of those ethics and conduct and belief as can change us from the formative years in our family through the developmental education, through the concretizing of ideas, values, beliefs, and everything at the group level, and then the validation and then actualization points to societal level. Because when all is said and done, when you look yourself in the mirror, what do you see? So we can fix those problems with this value system. And if we do not understand this, then we have to start it. We can change the 1999 Constitution and make it for what we want. Talk about how power was better, or we decentralize each system, or we should run at his own pace, build his own support. The reality is, if you still have the same set of people, they change the personnel, don't change it. They change the personality of fix Nigeria. I remember saying something somewhere. The person said, it is not only Nigerians that need a new Nigeria. Actually, Nigeria itself needs a new Nigerians. That doesn't mean that we need to go on a massive societal effects and wipe away the surface of the Nigerian space. Every man, woman, and child who is in Nigeria. It means that we need to begin to reevaluate our mentality, our mindset, our thoughts and belief system, our attitudes, and the way we approach the issues that affect all of us as a people. You can't afford to absorb yourself. Self-absorbment is by far the biggest social menace that we are faced with today. And as long as we don't address it, as long as we don't address it to ourselves, I agree that we are victims of perpetrators of the social economy that has existed for the entire 60 years plus since Nigeria has been in existence. That's not likely or will not likely change. So,
thank you so much.
Fix the leadership crisis, the systemic and structural forces. You must fix the Nigerian mindset. And maybe just maybe able to figure out a way to make it true.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I just wanted to say your volume was echoing. I don't know why, but I'm sure before we come back to you, you would have sorted it. I don't know why it was echoing, but you made a lot of points. Okay, it's much better that you made a lot of important points, and I'm grateful. For example, the rebuilding the family and all that, which is one of the reasons, at least we on the NEL show, we are on the rebuilding the value system series. We started first Saturday in July up until now, because just like you said, we understand. We started from individuals, families, then we did church, and now we're doing governments, because at the end of the day, it is what will. It's from the office of the citizen that the president or the government or whoever, local government chairman or the leader is going to emerge. Which takes me to the next question, to Toyin. And after Toyin, I'll come to Daniel when Toyin is done. Which is, so Toyin, what is the role? When I said a lot now regarding value system, I'm going to be asking, by the way, you can feel free to comment on anybody's points if you want to, but I'm going to be asking us different questions. I won't be asking us the same question anymore, so that we're also able to maximize time. What is the role of the citizen in rebuilding the nation, the government, and yeah, even the value system, which is the theme of this conversation. Because of course, just like I just said, many times I think some people forget that the government that they're insulting and all that are their uncles, their aunties, and all that. So, what is the role of the citizen in building the nation? I'm not sure where the noise is coming from. Okay, I'm not sure, Emmanuel. If you would please mute your mic. There's an obstruction coming from, and I don't think it's from Daniel, so I think it's Daniel. Okay. So what can the citizens do? We know that we need to review the value system, all well and good, but what can we now do in the office of the citizen to rebuild our nation and government as we are currently?
Thank you very much, Nkechi, for that very great question. So, just as you rightly said, the way you have captioned the question, it is the responsibility of everyone to birth change within their community, within the nation. So when people hear when we're talking about politics, they always think in their minds that we must appoint somebody to represent us to actualize the birthing of transformative change within a community, within a nation. And on the other hand, people must begin to realize that it starts with you and I. Now, from the analysis that Emmanuel shared, it was, just talking about the needs for the value reorientation and all of that. He said something. If we have people who are selfish, who just think only about themselves, they will not see or seek opportunities to provide little solutions within their communities. And every day, these opportunities avail us. These opportunities surround us. So if each citizen within Nigeria can rise to the occasion to say, within my current neighborhood, my community, where are the opportunities for me to make change? There are longing, like opportunities staring us in the faces. Some people within their communities, you have street beggars. Some people, it's what's it called? Messing up of the degradation of the environment, whereby you step out into your street and you're seeing gutters, you're sort of filled up with plastics, waste, and all of that. What if you can start off with sensitization within that community and making people realize the need to begin to clean their environment, how they are responsible for the current environmental degradation happening within their space? Do you get it? What if each of us can just sit down and seek out opportunities staring us within our faces to birth real-time solutions to it, and just starting with it one step at a time? Most times, people always think when we think about change, we think change is immediate. We think change happens suddenly. Change is a cumulative of positive steps taken in the right direction. You don't even know the steps you will take that will trigger that change. And for you to sustain change, it has to be continuous. You have to keep at it. That consistency must be there. The moment you cut the slack, you cut off at any point, you are going to be, you will be regressing to where you were, and it will take you triple, double, times 10 the efforts you made to get back to the point of the change you had achieved. So I just want the citizens to realize that it's a collective responsibility. In as much as, yes, we would always appoint someone at the political level, at any of the levels, whether locally, state, federal, to represent, it is still our rights, our collective responsibilities to bet change within our environment, community, and within the nation. And these opportunities stare us in the face daily. All we need to do is to really, take hold of these opportunities and begin to do something actionable in the now towards betting that change.
Thank you so much, Toyin. And really practical solutions you gave. Let us start with where we are. I do think that, like the joke I was making at the beginning, when I say people are speaking on radio from the 7 a.m. program to the 12 midnight program, that sometimes people feel helpless. When there's one thing you can pick and you can do, you can pick something, one thing to do, and it's a division of labor. We all have to do our own part for us to see that community, just like you have said. Thank you so much. I'm moving to Daniel now, but I want to share, please, when you are not speaking, please mute yourself. This is because Instagram, when we're having more than one person, I think there's usually the sound disruption. So I'm sure they'll work on it. So I think muting ourselves will help us. Thank you again, Toyin, for that. So if you're just joining us, welcome. We're discussing rebuilding the value system in the government, Nigeria as a nation. Daniel, the primaries we have seen is a huge determinant on who becomes, especially president. So many Nigerians were shocked when they saw that who they were going to pick as president was going to be determined for them at the primaries. In fact, I think for the first, well, not first time, but it just became very visible in this year, this time, that, it's not just about saying you will carry your PVC and vote. There's something like the primaries that even helps you determine who will be appointed or who can be appointed. Please, I'd like you to share more steps so everybody watching out. How can we practically be involved in being a part of our primaries? And I want to tie that in. Well, so there are two in one question, so you can answer it one after the other. With what is the function and usefulness of a local government, and how can people really be involved without just shouting all over the place? So what can you do with your own local government? But let's start with the primaries, because I found that funny. It was not looking like, so whatever I eat, so it's what you've given me to eat that I must eat. And people started to say a lot of things, but it couldn't change much because it had been done and it had been done.
Well, we're talking about primaries. Well, that's why you have various political parties. And you get the opportunity to choose from over 15 political parties that will be participating in their candidates. When it comes to the question of how we can participate, I think it's very important that we understand that elections for politicians is about winning. It's about winning. So it's not about who is the best man. It's about who can win election. When it comes to elections for politicians, it's about who can win election. It doesn't matter if you're the best. The best man for the job doesn't always win. It's who can win. So if the person, and look at if you look at what is being played out in in the country right now, look at APC. They are picking a Muslim ticket, not because they like it, but they are looking at what combination can win us the favoritism, can give us a better chance of winning more votes in this region. What is the combination that can give us a better chance of winning in this region? It has practically nothing to do with religion at the end of the day, right? So how can we participate? We can participate by being involved. By being involved in the sense that you have to join a political party. You cannot make comments about activities being done by politicians from the outside. You have to be within the system. You can't say the system is so corrupt, so you will not join this. You cannot correct the system you are not part of, unless you want to, most likely, cause a sin. So you have to be part of a system one way or the other. When you are part of a system, then you can really know exactly how things are done. A lot of the times we are making so much comment about how politicians and the politics of our countries or the affairs of our countries are being run. But we do not understand that if you're not within that system, you might not necessarily be able to make the right judgments on why things are done that way. So join a political party, be part of a political movement, get to have your own understanding of ideologies and philosophies about where you want to see Nigeria be, and find people who are also tilting towards that line. So now is not the time to just critique the government. It's a time to actually study, read, look at these individuals. How does their ideology align with what I believe in? How does their philosophy, how does their perspective align with where I want to see my country? And you will definitely find somebody that aligns with it. You cannot have it all together. Definitely there will be one that is higher in terms of, because none of these candidates I have seen so far have everything to take Nigeria to the promised land, like some people would say. But somebody would definitely have, somebody definitely has more to offer than some other individuals. Yeah. And talking about local government, I think we have because of this kind of system we play in our country, the central politicization of our country, where every decision is taken from the central, and state government also have a certain level of control over local government. There are states in this country where there are no local governments at all, where the governor has said that I'm canceling every local government chairman. I don't need all of that. But we need to come to a place where I am of the opinion that until we give full autonomy to local government, we might not necessarily see the impact of it. For us to see, what I would want us to understand, the same way we are talking about the decentralization of our policing system, that's the same thing. That's the only way we can also see impact of our local government. Until we decentralize the government of the day, where federal government, state government, and local government stand as entity on their own, we might necessarily not see the impact of the local government. But yes, you are correct. They are the closest to the people. They are the ones that that can speak to the needs of the people. But if local governments still have to source funds from the state government, then there's also going to be a problem. If local government are not handed over funds directly to control affairs of certain local government, and why they are overseen by the state government, then we'll continue to have this issue. So, and that's why you see that a lot of the times the ruling party in the states wins most of the local government in that state, because of they control the narrative how local government operates in each state. Yeah. So let's get involved. From what the other two speakers have said, we need to look at it. I want to also add that there are two things we need to correct: the selfish culture in our society and the entitlement mentality. Those two things need to be taken care of. We come from a history where we have seen how much of selfishness put us into slavery. If you go to Badagry, you hear the history of how the hundreds of slaves were traded for a peanut or one sweet or an umbrella. That's the selfish culture. We want to own everything. The entitlement mentality of we own this thing, we deserve something without necessarily working hard for it. So we need to correct those mentality among our people, among our leaders. So in terms of like restructuring our mindset in the family level, we need to not just think of ourselves. We need to think of the community around us. And that thinking of ourselves is something that has come way back. Look at what is happening today. Every politician in elective position today, all of their children schooled abroad. Guess what? They are coming back to rule us. That's the hard truth. Whether we like it or not, I can't remember the state now, but there's a state in the north where the governor is going to the Senate, his son is going to the State House of Assembly, his daughter is going to definitely become a commissioner in that same state. It's one of these northern states. I can't remember the exact state, but that's they've campaigned already. So we already have been existing on a very selfish culture. Everybody's thinking of how can I make it better for my family, but we do not understand that it is when the community is okay that your family can actually be okay. If you're the only rich person among 100 people, you don't think you can't excel. You definitely would fail, because people would want to rob you, people would want to steal from you, people would think negative about you. What impact are we essentially making to have a ripple effect on our community? I was talking with a group of people recently, and I realized that growing up, my parents telling me not to talk to certain people in our streets, yeah, made those people feel less of themselves. My parents segregating us from certain people in our communities and not even being bothered about how those people are living their lives is what is affecting us today. The people we have failed to train, the children we have failed to train are the ones coming back to bite us right now in our economy. Right? The Boko Haram we are talking of today, the politicians will abandon these people after telling them that if they go to school, they will give them jobs, right? And they did not provide them jobs. Boko Haram is saying no to academics because politicians promised them that if they go to school, get an education, they would give them a better life, and which was what they did not now do. And now we are having this crisis within our community and our state today. So the selfish culture and the entitlement mentality is what we need to get rid of, which I think is one of the fundamental things we need to get rid of in the family level. If we can get rid of this within the family, then we can begin to make progress, where people will begin to say that, you know, we are voting in this person because he's aligning with the things we want him to achieve. We need to, our people need to learn how to read, which is a major problem. We need to learn how to read. We need to be able to, you know, hold our government officials to ransom, which is what a lot of us do not know. They are there to serve us. We are the masters of these politicians. But because of how much politics has been used, the weaponization of poverty in our country today is what is making us to think that, you know, politicians are our leaders. No, we are the leaders. We put them there. They campaign so hard to get our votes so that they can be there. Yeah? Because if the numbers are not important, they would not spend that large amount of money. Elections that are coming in 2023, the minimum budget for any major candidate in the presidential election can be less than 6 billion naira for campaign. You can't be spending less than 6 billion on campaign and not expect to, and we should now not expect that individual not to serve the purpose of why we are putting them there. So they understand the importance of the numbers. They know how important the numbers are. And it's a shame that, you know, our current system of government has weaponized poverty in such a way that peanuts is what people would accept. Look at what happened in the Ekiti state election. People were taking 5,000 naira for votes. How much is 5,000 naira to 4 years of your life? You know, can you spend 5,000 naira for the next 4 years? And that's what's going to happen. Look at 2023 elections are coming. There'll be distributions of bag of rice. There'll be distribution of money. The government is still going to come out with another market. What did they call that thing now? When they were distributing 5,000 naira to market women, they will still do it towards election. ASU strike would be over. Why? Because they need those students back in school to win election, not because they want to attend to the demands of ASU. Wow. So we have a long way to go. And and I agree with every other speaker that and like you have said, it starts from us understanding our importance as Nigerians. And like Emmanuel said, Nigeria itself needs new Nigerians, because until we as individuals in the country see the need to make Nigeria better, we cannot necessarily make any change until we are able to hold every government official. What happened in the United States, in the United Kingdom, still amazes me. How there was so much pressure on the prime minister. He had to resign because that pressure was too much. Look at what happened in Sri Lanka. They pursued the president away from the country because he was not delivering. Because people are now seeing the need to take the bull by the horn and demand for their rights. We're not doing that. The government, they already know the weakness. Our government are very intelligent people. They have the best people at their beck and call. So they know what to do. But we ourselves must begin to reinvent ourselves as individuals and tell ourselves that until we become new Nigerians, we cannot have a new Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Wow, so much. So many profound points. The identity and TSS. Thank you, Mr. Daniel. This guy said it's correct. Thank you. And please feel free to share your comments. Especially outstanding for me is the part of being involved. I like how you said you cannot change the system you're not a part of. And whether people support Banky W joining PDP or whether they don't support him, the fact that the guy decided that I want to be a part of the system is worthy of applause. So whether you support, whether you don't support, it's now a different thing entirely. And true, like you said, you can't. There's nothing you want to do. You won't be able to change that system until you're a part of it. And I hope that is something that we're able to hold on to. We're able to hold on to and remember so that we can work on it and we can implement it. All right, thank you so much, Kels, for your comments. All right, Emmanuel, what are the function and usefulness of a state government and a federal government, and what is the difference? What is the usefulness and function of the state government? What's the function and usefulness of the federal government? And what is the difference? If you could help us out with this. So that I'm asking this question, the intention of this question is to help us know who should be carrying what weight. We've been able to talk about citizens with Toyin. Daniel helped us with local government. I would like you to please help us with functions and usefulness of local governments and federal of state government and federal government and what their roles are. And yes, we're going to take questions from our listeners. I've gotten one question and we'll pick that up. I will ask the question in due time. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, so if you remember, the very first question that we asked at the beginning of this conversation, it was, what is a democracy? Isn't it democracy?
Yes, we asked that question.
And I remember in the truest sense of the word, what we have is a pseudo democracy, and I say pseudo because it's essentially in principle to a certain degree. When it comes down to the practicality of it, there's a lot that is to be desired. There's a lot left to be desired that we do not have. But for the purpose of probity, I would say that when you look at the way that we have different tiers of government, local, state, federal, it is in itself an elemental feature of a democracy, that need to ensure that there is a presence, whether perceptible or real, of the governments at the lowest level, or what we like to describe as the grassroots level. So the local government in itself, and essentially constituted local authority, a constituted local authority that carries out the responsibility of governance so that it directly affects and benefits people who are at the remote level, in rural communities or in the suburbs. And so sometimes you often things like Ministry for Chieftaincy Affairs, traditional rulers, intergovernmental affairs, and all of those things that pertain to the localities. Now, when you find that people have certain cravings or expectations or yearnings, not all of those things can be resolved at the central level or at the central step of government. So we have something called an executive, residual, and concurrent list. This refers essentially to the different aspects of government services and products and programs that each tier of government is directly responsible for. So the exclusive list includes such issues around power, such issues around distribution, such issues around, formulation of policies and all that. That's essentially something that is in the exclusive list, which is what the federal government is tasked with doing or accomplishing. The residual list is the one that the state government handles, and it has to do with issues around internal transportation, to a lesser extent healthcare, and all of that. And then at the concurrent list is the issues around community development, associations, trading, market, commerce, economy, and inter-ethnic, inter-religious, and interfaith activities and programs. So the local government is charged with responsibility for providing a representation or a presence of government at the local level, the state is itself at the state level, and then of course the federal level. Now, when we now address the issue of whether or not there is an effectiveness in that stratification across across tiers, from local to state to federal, that is now a matter of practicality rather than a matter of principle or convention. And so what I mean by that is, you will often hear when we discuss issues around local government administration, there's always been this clamor for a very long time around ensuring the local government have autonomy which is the capacity to decide for and run certain things. And you often find that because of the emperor complex or God complex of many of our governors, there is that need to aggrandize to themselves certain, iota of power or control over how the local governments are run and who is in charge of local government, and ensuring that these people are at the whim, caprices, at the beck and call, control, subjugation of this government. Okay, so you will often find that, a preponderance of the attention that we pay to the people in government, it starts with at the federal. Very often you discuss at the state level. Very little is known about local government chairman. If I ask one of us, people in the group, who is the local government chairman of your local government area where you come from, nothing of us know. But you know the president. Every other time something goes wrong, they take like this Buhari regime. Fuel price goes up, Buhari regime. This one goes up. But you see, when you also have certain other issues that most likely fall under the concurrent list, so there's a clash in the marketplace. There are conversations around whether they are taxing people for a particular place to be used for commercial activities and all that. We don't remember that some of these things are domiciled within the local government authority, and we don't even bother to question them. Well, to just bond everything and drop it at the feet of His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, because it's the all of everything Nigerian. But that's not true. So, and that's what I like. I like what Daniel said, that the problem is that we Nigerians, we do not read. We just like to just go and pick these opinions from echo chambers, and we continually go echoing, resonating this hastily thought out ideas and opinions. We don't even take our time to ingest these things, articulate them, compress the ideas, and then come out with well thought, sounded, operationally and morally sound ideas about how government works. We don't have this ideas. We don't read. We don't study. Remember back in the days when we studied social studies in secondary school, and then went on to study government. A large portion of what we were supposed to study is essentially around government. What is government? What is democracy? What's local government? What's the chieftaincy title? What's the local government authority and all that? All of that has been expunged from our curriculum. So what we have are young people who are now beginning to mistake their knowledge or the information that they have from being on social media is more than enough information. So we have people who are social media smart and knowledgeable, but they lack understanding because they have subjugated themselves. They've not surrendered themselves to a place of introspective learning and study to understand the thing for what it is, rather than what somebody who purports himself as an influencer or as an opinion leader is. And so that's the problem we have. So government is itself, as we have already established, a representation, a function of the people who lead and those who are being led. It is an expression of our desire, hope, and aspiration. It's a collection of everything we hope, desire, and want for ourselves. And it is a system that requires participation from those in positions of authority and those who have allowed those people access to those positions of authority. A collective of the led, and those who lead. So if we subjugate ourselves from the franchise and say, oh, so I have a president, why should I care about how certain things? So you're not government. You're not building a system that is sustainable. You can't grow a system that way because you remove yourself and say you're content to allow the government to take responsibility for all of those things. But you don't know which one is the responsibility of the local government. You don't know which one is the responsibility of the state and federal. Let me quickly say this. I was watching a video of the Minister for Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, being harassed by somebody in the US only a few days ago during the election. He kept putting the camera in the face of this man. I was asking, you are my government. I have to ask you, I'm a civil servant, I'm a Nigerian, I'm American. And he was saying a lot of silly things. And I was having a conversation around that with a few people, and I read some things on Twitter. I say, yes, it's true, we should go to responsible. They're having elections in Osun, and it's not there. And I went and I read the person's timeline. I was going to trade with the person, but when I went to the person's timeline and I read the person's Twitter app, and I saw the details, and this person says, I love to read and write. Strategists, psychologists. I'm like, this one is not. This one is a shit strategy. You don't have any. There's no brain cell working in that person's head. Because if you don't understand the of the Ministry of Interior and somehow think that by extension he has some role to play in making your life or the life of the people of Osun better by being Minister for Interior, then there's something definitely wrong with the way we perceive how government works.
Oh my God.
So we can go on endlessly about what is the system working? Are we doing it right? Are we putting responsibility where it belongs, or are we removing ourselves? Are we isolating ourselves from the problem? We can unpack government. Government is positional authority, and by dispositional authority and power, I'm talking about as citizens, we are in a disposition to make, shape, influence ideas that are by themselves and in the of what we want to see happen in government. And those in positional authority, we have now given the constituted power and authority to make those decisions on our behalf. So if you, for instance, do not register to vote, if you do not think it's important that your vote counts, if you don't think you must have a say in what policy is being formulated as it affects you, in fact, many people do not even know what a policy is. Like, we're talking about policy and everything, and I'd like to just go back to that. We don't know what policies are, how to shape and influence our lives. Not many people understand what the new policy on taxation is. You will probably have bought a bottle of drink, a bottle of Coke or Fanta for maybe a price significantly higher than what it used to be. You've gone to a restaurant and you've paid, and you will say VAT, and you're not asking questions. Why is it? What's VAT? You don't care. You're just shouting. So we don't. We're in love with ignorance. We are ashamed. And so it's showing in the way we express our frustrations and the way we pour out our anger on government and those in government and what we expect these people to do for us. So what we want to do now is begin to address issues around civic education and enlightenment on what government is, what it entails, who is responsible for what, and how and when to be accountable for what and why certain things are happening the way that they are.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And we will look at that for future conversations to help us shape the specific topic we'll be talking about. Toyin, please help us understand how we can become new Nigerians. Emmanuel spoke about, he pioneered the conversation on Nigeria needing new Nigerians. Daniel spoke a bit about it. I would like you to expatiate on how can we become new Nigerians for the Nigeria that we want to see and we desire and we are continually talking about?
Thank you so much, Ingwechi, for that question. Yes. So, yes, I just love that Emmanuel already delved into that a little bit. And I think at some point we all have laid emphasis on some key points regarding how we become new Nigerians. A point that has run through all of our conversations this morning has been the need for a change in our thinking, a change in our mindset as individuals. Imano made a very profound point, when he was sharing analysis of when you wake up in the morning, what motivates you? You wake up in the morning, you step into the bathroom, you take a bath, brush your teeth, you start out your day. There is something motivating you. There is a why. There's a why for what you do every single day.
Well, okay, Tony, I think your network. Okay, I can hear you now. Yes.
Sorry, okay. So, how we can become new Nigerians starts from the place of first understanding that there must be a change in our mindset and in how we think. How we think, now let me break that down. How we think, one, about ourselves. Secondly, how we think about Nigeria as a nation. You cannot change a state or a nation if you have a mindset or thinking that it's impossible to bring change in that nation. So it starts with how we think about ourselves, our roles within the nation, and secondly, how we think about the nation. Now, when we say how we think, we're not saying you shouldn't understand the problems. And that's why I really love how Emmanuel and Daniel have spoken about understanding our history as a people and all of that. You must understand that. But in understanding the history, that is that is going to help to shape how you are going to begin to think about birthing change within the nation. So how we think as individuals about our role and how we think as individuals about the nation is very important. So that's about the change in mindset. Secondly, how we will become new Nigerians. I will again reiterate this point. We cannot absolve ourselves of responsibility, and I think again we have all emphasized that point. The responsibility lies with us. So after you have a change in mindset, and then you again reorientate, because already it doesn't mean most of us, it doesn't mean these behaviors don't exist. We just have to reorientate ourselves about the right values. People know about what the right values for kids. People know about the positive values to imbibe. But is there a willpower to change? Is there a willpower to inculcate the right values and stick with them? Do you understand? Is there that willpower to do that? A lot of people already feel there is that negative energy, or that state of is a state of neutrality where people just think, even if you think you imbibe the right values, it still will not change anything. And we need to get out of that thinking. It's a rotting thinking. We need to step into that understanding that the responsibility lies with everyone, and you can't absorb yourself. So that's how we can become Nigerians. You now begin, as I've earlier highlighted, you now begin to look out for opportunities. Opportunities to either become an educator, sensitizing. Now we are an election years before us. What can you begin to do? Can you become a sensitizer, sensitizing people about how they can get their voters card, how they should exercise their civic responsibilities to vote, and then also going out there to galvanize people. Yes, not just society, to carry out these things and step out there, knowing how to go about the vote, participating, just as Daniel rightly said, getting involved, getting to a political party, letting our voice be heard. And that's what we're doing today, letting our voice be heard by participation and by action, active participation. Let me put it rightly, active participation, getting into the political party, getting into getting involved with what is going on at your local government level, and so on and so forth. We can go on and on, but there must be active participation. We can't continue to sit down, analyze on social media, fold our hands, rant, do all sorts, and think things will change. And then also now begin to, just as again writing on what Emmanuel and Daniel are shared, also getting into these political arenas and opportunities to now build structurally. Do you understand? Build structurally and strategically. Because a lot of people just think we just come online, we run, this is this. We need to now begin to know it's a system, and you must remain consistent with it. It's not like we are building towards election and then when election comes, then all the movements and everything happening now, they all fizzle into the thin air. I pray it does not happen to be. Regardless of the results during that year, we must build for the long term. We must build, with the long term in view, building structurally and strategically. Not just because 2023 is before us, but because, okay, this is the end goal. We want to become new Nigerians. It won't happen overnight. It will take consistent, step-by-step, actionable direction that will be done in the long term. It's not overnight. So those are my points.
Thank you so much. And before I move to, because I'm moving to Daniel now, that is what part of what your organization at the of the organization you lead does in terms of empowering social organizations to be able to make those changes in their different sphere, which is what you are emphasizing now, and what a lot of every speaker has actually emphasized. One way or the other, you must be involved. I just wanted to emphasize that apart from even political involvement in your own sphere, the way you can definitely make a difference. Thank you so much for that contribution, Toyin. Okay, so I'm coming to Daniel now because we're going to start to